Hi folks, we're going to take a look at the solution to number 10 on page 263. So they give us this position versus time function. Interesting enough, they don't tell us what T's units are, but they tell us that S, the position, is in meters. Okay, and they're asking us to find the velocity at T equals pi over 4. Okay, so first thing we have to do is find the velocity function. So we can't input this pi over 4 until we actually have the velocity function. So of course the velocity is just the derivative of the position function. Okay, so we just have to find the derivative of this function here. Clearly we're going to have to use the quotient rule, so let's go ahead and do that. So derivative of the numerator, derivative of sine t is just cos t, okay, times the denominator function, so 3 plus cos 2t, okay, minus the numerator function, sine t, times the derivative of the denominator function. So derivative of 3 is just 0, so we have to find the derivative of cos 2t. Now of course here we're going to have to use a chain rule, okay, because we don't have cos t, we have cos 2t. So our placeholder variable u represents 2t. So derivative of cosine is negative sine, so we have negative sine of u, which of course is just equal to 2t. And now we have to take the derivative of u with respect to t, so derivative of 2t is just 2. Okay. And all that is going to be over 3 plus cos 2t squared. Okay. Now, I could simplify. There's a lot of writing. I think what I'm just going to do at this point is input pi over 4 into our velocity function. Okay, and worry about the simplifying later on. So here we have cos of pi over 4, okay, times 3 plus cos of 2 times pi over 4 is going to be equal to pi over 2. Okay, minus, I guess here we can simplify a little here. So I'll bring the 2 to the outside, and I'm subtracting a negative, so that just become plus 2 times sine of pi over 4, and then times sine of 2 times pi over 4, which again is just pi over 2. And then all that is going to be 3 plus cos times 2 times pi over 4 is again pi over 2, all squared. Okay, so let's simplify this here. So cos of pi over 2 is just 1 over root 2. Here we've got 3 plus, well, cos of pi over 2, well, remember, cos starts at its maximum, and at pi over 2, quarter is just going to be equal to, cos of pi over 2 is just going to be equal to 0, quarter of the way through its cycle. It's just 0, so that's nice and easy. Plus 2 times sine of pi over 4 is also equal to 1 over root 2. And sine of pi over 2, well, that's just equal to 1. Okay, so here we've got 3 plus, we already established that cos of pi over 2 is equal to 0. Okay, and so here in the end we've got a pretty easy thing to solve. So here I've got 3 over root 2 plus 5 over root, 3 over root 2 plus 2 over root 2 is 5 over root 2, and all that is over 3 squared, which is 9. Okay, so in the end we have 5 over 9 root 2, and here again they tell us that it's meters, but we don't know what the time units are, so we'll have to say meters per unit of time. Okay, and that gives us our answer. Okay, so just to recap here, they're giving us a position function. We're looking for a velocity value, so first we find the derivative of the position function to determine the velocity function. Okay, and then from there I just input my number and hopefully carefully put all my did all my calculations.